folks, welcome to another little video, Kent Models. Today I want to talk about our little starter airbrush kits, and this video is about introducing you to the kit, talking about what you get in the kit, the basics of how to set it up, a little bit about the paints and mixing, some do's and don'ts, and just some general advice about painting really. So if you're interested in those things, then stick around and watch the video. So this kit is our basic airbrush kit. It's designed for people that have never airbrushed before pretty much and are just getting into airbrushing. So it's a basic kit and needs to be respected as such. I know there's a lot of people out there that are seasoned airbrushers and model makers that might turn their nose up at this little kit because they've got a compressor and a very expensive setup. But this is a starter kit for people looking to get into it for the first time. So it serves a fantastic purpose and it works a treat. So introducing to the kit, this is the kit. So you get a can of propellant, which essentially is compressed air, which is what powers it. So you don't need to get anything else. Everything you need to start painting a car or a bike or model is in this kit here. So you get a can of propellant. You have bits and pieces in the kit. I'll just take them out. I'll move that out of the way. So you get 2 glass jars. One is already attached to the airbrush head. You get the tube obviously that connects them, and you get the fitting that goes on the can. Now just a quick introduction to some of these parts. Very straightforward. The way it works, you can see from the top of the can there, this fitting has got a needle valve on the top. The more you screw it in, the more it goes in to the can, the more air comes out. There's a couple of O-rings that you need to make sure are seated correctly, but that's fundamentally how it works, very straightforward. The adjustment, there's quite a few turns to turn it into the can, but the actual adjustment to regulate the flow later on when we're talking about paint and airflow is actually probably only about 1/4 of a turn, so it's very, very fine. Anyway, to assemble it, you just make sure this is screwed out already, and you screw it onto the can, real straightforward, he says. And then to rig it all, the tube's got 2 screw-in fittings on there. They're both exactly the same, so you can't get them wrong. And they've got like a little interference fit. So you just tighten them finger tight, common sense tight, very straightforward. Don't over tighten them. They're only small fittings. And the same on the airbrush end. And obviously you can take out any kinks in the pipe later. So that's how it works. Now just to quickly show you how the air flows. So now both ends are attached, that's on. I can screw this down. You'll hear a little spurt of air which has just powered up the tube. And now the air is obviously here. It doesn't leak out anywhere. If you've got any leaks, obviously check all your connections. And the way that it works is that you push down this little trigger, and you can probably hear it in the video. Yep. And the air is coming out of this nozzle here, and it's passing over the top of the paint nozzle. And what it does is the air that's passing over the top of the paint nozzle is enough to, as a vacuum, to draw that out and to draw the paint up this tube that's inside here and throw it out and create a spray. Now it's a fixed nozzle, the air that's coming out, but obviously you can regulate how much air is coming out with this screw later on if you want to. Now the paint nozzle itself, so you've got a siphon tube, so obviously the paint goes up that tube. And this is adjustable as well in itself. So the more it's screwed in, the less paint comes out. The more it's unscrewed, the more paint comes out. Pretty straightforward. As a starting point, what I suggest is with it all the way in, just come out about half a turn. That's going to be your starting point, okay? And then from there, once you've got your paint in there, then you'd start to experiment maybe just on an old cardboard box is a good starting point just for the moment to see how much air is coming out versus how much paint, and just kind of experiment so you get it to a point where you feel that the mix is about right, the ratio is okay. Now, once you feel you've got that right, then what you want to do is get something that's plastic before you get your model kit and try the flow on something plastic. Ta-da! So you could try it and just see what it looks like, or how it comes out. And what you're looking for is just a reasonable amount of coverage, okay? So what you'll find as you use the can and as you start using the spray, the can will start to go cold because you're using the air that's in there. And what you want to do is periodically you want to shake the can. Certainly you want to shake it a lot, maybe 30 seconds before you start using it for the first time. And what you'll find is as you're using the can and the spray, because it's powered by this can, you may find that the air begins to fluctuate and that it's not as powerful as it was when you first started, and that's just because you haven't kept up with keeping the can shook. So essentially, every time you go to put on a dust another coat, give this a proper shake up and start again, you'll find the pressure maintains the same. If you don't do that and the can feels like it's kind of full up, or you can hear it's got loads in it, but the flow's not very good, it's just because you haven't shook the can properly, that's all. So what you want to do again for a starting point is you want to mix the paint 50-50. So you want 50% paint, 50% thinners. That's the starting point. Now you can mess around with those ratios as much as you like, it's no problem, there's no fixed hard rules about it, but for a beginner and for someone just getting started, there's no point to be creative, just go 50-50, jobs are good. So what you want to do is, obviously these are our normal 10mm paints. You'll find that half of one of these, so these are 10mm, so half of one of these, so about 5mm, is enough to paint the body of a 1/24 scale car. That's what we found. So you put half of one of these in your pot, and then you'd see obviously how much it was, and you put another half of thinners in there, put the spare lid on, give it a shake, and then you've got your mix right. Now if you want to get scientific about it, which we would recommend you doing anyway, is in our Mr. Mix kit you get these little pipettes that have got markings on them. So essentially you can suck out the right amount of paint, squirt it back into the pot, same thing on the thinners, and you know you've got the mix exactly right. Now it's not 100% necessary to do that, but where that does come into its own is that if you need to mix up another batch of paint, if you don't get that exactly right, what you'll find is that the colour will be slightly different depending on how much thinners you actually put in there. So if you want to be scientific about it and you're painting something large, like a big boat or something, and you want to make sure that you get that mixture exactly right, otherwise you're going to have some variation in the colour. So that's something to be aware of. When it comes to thinners, so there's two different types of thinner that you'll see in our shop. So as a first time model maker and airbrusher, the one that we recommend is the aqueous one, which is this one here, right? Now the aqueous one, like the paints, is water based. So what you'll find is that by using this and mixing it with the normal paints, the aqueous paints, you'll get a great finish. The coverage is good, drying time is okay. And when it comes to finishing up and to cleaning everything, all you need to do is wash it under a warm tap and it will come up like new again. It's lovely because it's water-based. Now, once you've got to grips with using this and you want to go a step further, then that's where Mr. Leveling Thinner comes into it. Now, Mr. Leveling Thinner isn't water-based. So this is going to be a product that will give you a much quicker drying time. As it says on the label, levelling, it tries to level out the paint to give a better finish to avoid orange peel kind of effect. Overall, the actual finish and the gloss is going to be better than just using the normal water-based one. Now, the word of warning about using this is that this is like normal paint acrylic thinners. So whatever you do with this and whatever you mix it with, suddenly you end up with that horrific paint that if you get it on anything, you need thinners to get it off with. And certainly if you're doing this on your kitchen table or in your kitchen and I don't know, using things from your, from your missus, the cutlery drawer to be doing your model making, all kinds of things that you get experimenting with. If this goes on stuff, it's tricky to get it off and you're going to use a lot of it. And the same for cleaning out the airbrush afterwards, in that you've got to use a lot of thinners to clean it all out. Whereas if you're just using the aqueous stuff, just warm water and some of this, and you'll find it's night and day in cleaning it. So to begin with, just use this. It's fine. It's no problem at all. So when it comes to mixing up your paints and using it, and say you can experiment with the flow of the air and the paint coming out. When you're done and you need to clean this, you need to make this look like it's brand new again. If you've got any residue of paint anywhere in these O-rings or in the pipe or anywhere, when you come to use it again, it's either not going to be as effective and you're going to get variable results of it, or it's just going to be gummed up and you're not going to be able to use it. So it's very tempting to just to kind of give it a once over and put it away, but you don't want to do that. You want to clean it thoroughly, take it all apart and blow through all of these different sections to make sure that not only is it clean, but then it's dry before you put it away, and leave it to dry. And the same thing, when you come to use it again, before you start putting paints in it and getting creative with mixing, just connect it all, get the flow right, make sure that everything's nice and clean and you're ready to go. Otherwise you end up mixing up your paint, putting it in, and you're in a world of pain when it doesn't work right, or for example you push the trigger down and it sticks down and stays on and it's all just coming out, and you can imagine, it's horrific. So keeping it clean is paramount. Now what you'll find with these water-based paints, and certainly when using the water-based thinners, is that the smell coming from the paints is nothing like just straight acrylic paint. So it's a little bit more friendly, I guess. But of course, you still need PPE, you still need to put a mask on, you still need to do it in a well-ventilated area. And generally with airbrushing, if you're going to attempt to do this indoors without a booth, you're probably going to incur the wrath of your missus because it's going to go everywhere. So putting it in the garage, doing it outside, anything like that is going to be advisable really. But if you want to be brave and you want to do it inside in a room somewhere, then go for it, knock yourself out, see what happens. But generally it's a real good, like a spray can, it's a real good spray that comes out of there and it goes everywhere. So that's pretty much it. Now lastly to talk about is primer. So obviously if you're currently using just spray cans, that's fine. Obviously the limiting factor is we sell about 25 different colours of this, whereas we sell over 100 different colours of this. So not only is it cheaper to use this, but you can also get creative with mixing colours if you want. So if you want to make up an interior seat colour, for example, I could put a little bit of black in it, I could put a bit of white in it, I could change it completely. And obviously I can use either my spare jar to do that, or I could use some of my paint mixing trays to do that. So it's it gives much more flexibility in doing that. And when it comes to primers, again, we've got a finishing surface primer that we do in a spray can, is 1500. And also we do it in a 40ml jar. You can see obviously the difference between normal paint and this is just a black primer. It's much bigger. It's going to last you ages. Now the relevance, just quickly to talk about Mr. Hobby surfacing primers, is this. The higher the number, the finer the paint. So if you're already using, for example, automotive sprays, which a lot of people do, buying from Halfords or whatever, that's fine. But using something that's made for the job is a whole different game. So the higher the number, the finer it is. So there's a 500, 1000 and a 1500 surfacer. Now we're selling the 1500, so that's the one that's most suitable for plastic model kits. Now where this comes into its own is that when you spray this on, because it's so fine, it's going to give good coverage, it's going to give a very good finish, nice and flat because it's so fine, but it's also going to make all the details of your door shuts, the door handles, or on a bike, the forks and tiny wheels and things, it's going to make them pop. It's not going to make them, you're not going to flood paint over real detailed parts. Whereas if you're using normal automotive paints, you're definitely going to find that whilst you primed it or you painted it, actually the finish isn't as good as it could be because the coverage is, maybe the paint's just a bit too heavy for it. So using the right paint for the job is critical. So whether you use the surfacer in a spray can, and you can see the difference between the size of the cans, one's 170ml and one's 100, so you're going to get a lot out of this can. Or you're using the 40ml jars with a brush and an airbrush. It also comes in white. The actual paint is exactly the same. So if you want detail and you want the best job possible, then use some of these 1500 surfacing sprays, which is basically primer, to be able to achieve that. And that's the same when it comes to these paints and also any kind of top coats that are specific for plastic model kits. That's the difference, is that a colour isn't just a colour, it's obviously just how much paint is being put on and how thick and how dense those pigments are. So that's really important to understand. So I hope that gives you a bit of an insight into the little airbrush kit. The flexibility that it gives in terms of all the colours maybe that you've already got, being able to mix custom colours, and also to be able to use the spray can and the airbrush for other projects. I mean, I found I got home the other night and my kids are using it for a school project, painting something with it. You know, this isn't specifically just for model kits. This is an airbrush kit, so you can do all kinds of things with this kit, and obviously with the paints in doing creative projects at home, or other projects, or other kind of modelling projects. So it's a very versatile little kit actually. But anyways, that's it for now. If you've got any questions about the kit, then of course let us know. You can always drop us an email. We're keeping these kits and also the spare canisters of propellant in stock all the time as best we can. So you can buy in confidence knowing that you've not just bought a kit and then suddenly you can't get this. We're keeping them in stock, so it's no problem there. And hopefully, as we found, using this little airbrush setup it's a fantastic way of upping your game in terms of the kits and the enjoyment out of model making in general. It's really, really fab, because there's so much more than just getting a spray can, taking the lid off and using it. This is much more involved and much more enjoyable to get right. So anyway, hopefully the video's been useful for you if you're a new time airbrush user. If you're an experienced airbrush user and you've got something you can add to this and help other people based on your experience, maybe you picked up on some things that I've said that maybe not quite right, or you disagree with, or can expand on more, then please just reply to the video and let other people know. That's what it's all about, sharing the love. Thank you very much.